Have you ever wondered about what else could be out there? The unknown, the anomalous. There's a secret group of scientists, military, and weapons experts who live to discover and hide creatures from the darkest corners of the world. While their efforts are successful more often than not, they unfortunately cannot contain them all for good. Out of the dozens of security breaches, one SCP leaves a much greater path of destruction in its wake over its fellow prison mates. That is the hard-to-kill reptile, SCP-682. Today we will be digging through the SCP files to see just how powerful this Series 1 SCP is to justify why you should fear him. Alright, let's dive in. 682 goes by many names: Tadake, Death's Mother, the Serpent, and even Primal Destruction of Existence. While there isn't one definitive origin story for SCP-682, there are a handful of theories as to where it originates from. For instance, he's possibly a great serpent from a garden containing the Tree of Life and the Tree of Knowledge. Now, while we can't conclusively determine 682's origins today, we can discuss his immense power in our universe. 682 remains contained in its cell, a giant 5 meter by 5 meter by 5 meter acid-resistant steel room where 682 sits in a hydrochloric acid. Now, we all know that hydrochloric acid is obviously a universal level weapon, which explains how 682 is contained in it, and it's definitely not the fact that the original author didn't know how insanely popular 682 would get. We all know that. With that in mind, 682 isn't some weak sauce gator boy who said "see you later, boy." He's escaped containment several times and has done battle with other SCPs, which we can scale 682 to. For instance, SCP-096, the Shy Guy, is strong enough to flip a semi-truck with its bare hands, a feat worth over 740,900 newtons. 682 himself is a very large reptile, appearing as a gigantic alligator with decomposing skin falling off, as well as a large bear skull. Bear with an A-R-E, not E-A-R. Compared to a normal alligator, 682 should have a bite strength of 1,735 megapascals, aka 251,623 pounds per square inch. There have been over 100 attempts at terminating 682, from regular firing squads to the uses of dozens of other SCPs, ranging from iconic classic creations to lesser known ones. For instance, he was exposed to crystallization, which he healed from. Then they tried reality warping, rewriting 682's history, banishing it to another dimension, putting SCP-3660, a black metal zipper, which somehow can be attached to almost anything, and then unzip it. I don't know. Onto 682 before unzipping himself, which revealed a hollow inside, followed by a small gecko walking out. 682 then grew back to his regular size shortly after. 682 even was exposed to SCP-3000, whose secretion could make anything forget everything. 682 seemingly forgot certain defensive abilities as it was further exposed to other SCPs, but 682 retained the ability to regenerate and shortly had all its memories come back. Now, you might be thinking that this lizard is pretty tough to be able to endure all these beatings and experiments, and I'd have to agree with you, but that's pretty small stuff, honestly. The organization once used SCP-1056, which can shrink things, on 682 in hopes to minimize the lizard so they can contain it easier. When 1056 was set to shrink 682 to 1/4 of its original size, it instead boosted 682's natural ability to alter itself to such a degree that 682 became so small that they could not pick up any traces of 682's existence in the containment cell. 682 was once dropped into SCP-3930, which is a void without a dimension, shape, or form, where anything that enters it will no longer exist. And yet, SCP-682 still exists. That's right, 682 adapted to something that doesn't allow it to exist, even though it didn't exist. In another attempt to terminate 682, the Foundation used SCP-3309, which can be used to write people and things out of reality and from history. When they wrote 682 out of existence, he just sort of didn't. This ties back to the idea that 682 is a universal constant, like gravity or time. This means that where there is no 682, there is no existence. 682 wants no existence. He wants nothing more than to end all life and can achieve forms of great power which allow him to do so. Aside from being able to adapt and kill any enemy in front of it, 682 can increase its size and durability. 682 took several blasts from the Gate Guardian SCP-001, before it was left with one limb, and then it passed out. And don't underestimate SCP-001 either. He is ridiculously powerful too, as its blade hits temperatures hot enough to rival our sun, and can also erase people from existence. You know, just gone. As SCP-682 grows larger, it continues to pull off even greater feats, like when it threw a giant spaceship across the Andromeda Galaxy in mere seconds. That is a distance of 220,000 light years, covered in mere seconds. Even if we severely lowball this feat and say it took 25 seconds, that still puts 682's throwing speed at 83 quintillion, 254 quadrillion, 400 trillion meters per second. That is nearly 280 billion times faster than the speed of light. Not only that, but when 682 got even larger, he was able to eat our sun, only to follow that appetizer with the 4-course meal by consuming and destroying every galaxy in our universe. To destroy one galaxy, and for this calculation I'll be using our own Milky Way, we would need to exceed its gravitational binding energy. To determine this number, we need to look at this equation, 3gm squared over 5r, where g stands for the gravitational constant, m is the stellar mass of the object, and r is the radius. The Milky Way is estimated to mass in at 3.00 e to the 42 kilograms, which is roughly 1.5 trillion times heavier than our sun. It is also said to have a radius of 52,850 light years, a distance of 5.00 e to the 20 meters. With all these factors in place, we find that the energy needed to exceed the GBE of our galaxy would have to be greater than 172 quintillion, 273 quadrillion yotatons of TNT. Yes, a yotaton. See, a kilo is 1,000 tons, and a mega is 1,000 kilotons. Following this method of using Greek prefixes, we can eventually get to yotatons, which is 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. That many thousands, and then the other 172,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. And that's only accounting for our galaxy, let alone the other 125 billion galaxies in our universe. So yeah, you should be afraid of 682, because if it doesn't get you right now, it's gonna get you later, as well as basically everything else. Imagine wasting 8 years on a doctorate just to have the universe go away like